Welcome to our next Wednesday's talk, part of the life planning series that we're doing on Wednesdays. And this is talking about senior care services. And we have two people here. One presenter. we have May, who is here, and May is Director of Home Care, is a home care specialist. Her background is in OT and with geriatrics and hospitalizations. Tell me if I'm saying the wrong things. She's from Rockville, went to University, Salisbury University, we all know that. Lives in Columbia, has a 15-month-old baby boy.
He's so gorgeous.
And so we're happy to have you here.
Thank you guys for having us.
Yes. And Jeannie Finnegan, here again, she's a geriatric care manager with a local company. She lives in Woodstock, and she has 6 children, adult children, and 3 golden retrievers.
Wow.
And she started with official care managing, I guess, in 2007, and this what brought her into the field was she was a care manager, unofficial, for many relatives and neighbors, and then that just led into being an official care manager. And so she's a certified dementia practitioner. So welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
And I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay.
We will be having question and answer, hopefully at the end.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll have a little bit of time at the end for Q&A.
Great.
Okay.
It's yours.
Thank you. So I work with Stanton Aging Solutions. We do care management. We also help people do advanced life care planning. And we often refer clients to home care agencies that we work with, that we trust. And May, with Capital City Nurses, she's hosting me to do this talk. I was telling Carol that one of the things I do like to share with my groups is that I'm not just talking about this from sort of a professional or educational background. It's because I've lived through being the primary caregiver as well as working with a caregiver who I had to bring in for my mom eventually, because she was at my home and she ended up in hospice. But I've kind of done a lot of caregiving myself, so I understand the emotional, physical, mental toll that it can take when you are a primary caregiver. Okay, so one of the things I like to start with is, how do you know if maybe you do need some help, or someone you know, someone you love? I want to go over some of that first. So some signs that we can kind of look at. And if you just had kind of one of these areas, depending on which thing it is, that even might be enough. But certainly if you, as I go through these kind of signs that you might need help, you can be thinking in your mind, oh, okay, that's me, or maybe that's me. And if it starts kind of stacking up on some areas, then that might mean it would be a benefit for you to have home care or other resources. Okay, so personal hygiene is starting to become difficult or even slip. Okay, so this could be, it's really tough getting in and out of the shower, baths are out of the question because I won't get back up. Shaving, washing your hair. I have a client right now who washing her hair is just really tough. And it's a big ordeal for her, kind of, she feels like. Oral hygiene, deciding what to wear, or perhaps not quite keeping up with laundry, so you kind of wear the same things. Sorry?
Somebody sneezed, so I just...
Oh, I thought someone said question. Okay. Or even forgetting to shower or losing track of when did I last take a shower. Toileting difficulties or incontinence management can become difficult. I have another client where that's a huge issue. There's always a lot of laundry involved because of a lot of leaks and accidents, especially at night, and that can start to become very overwhelming. Okay, so personal hygiene. Here's a second area, having trouble either taking your medications appropriately or remembering to take them. This can happen to anybody, by the way. For a period of time, I was taking a few different medications and, it becomes so rote that later I would go, I didn't have a pill box at that point. And I was like, did I take that? I feel like I took it. I don't know if I took it. So then I got a pill box and I just, just go by that. But even with that, sometimes if someone loses track of what day it is, or they don't remember if they refilled the box after they took the medications, there's a lot of little things that can happen with that. And medications, every year, at least 450,000 people end up in the ER, 65 and older, because of medication errors on their own part. So you can take too much or you cannot take it, and neither one of those errors can, create a situation of like overdose or symptoms like delirium, heart palpitations, dizziness, which all those can actually put you more at risk of falling as well. So there's a connection between medication errors and falls. Okay, so personal hygiene, medication issues. How about this one? And this one we realize how important this area is because of going through COVID, when we had so much isolation, so much depression as a result of that. But are you or someone you love isolating or withdrawing from normal activities, attending church, getting together with family or friends? Some of the reasons for that can be just feeling like you're losing connection with people for various reasons. Some people don't have a lot of friends or family. There are people who don't have any adult children or any that live in the state or nearby. But some of the reasons for purposefully kind of isolating oneself can also be, I feel like I have trouble keeping up with some of the conversations. I feel awkward. It feels stressful to be around more people now. So that's can be a sign of some things going on. So it's something to pay attention to. And of course, feelings of depression and anxiety often lead to isolation. When someone is depressed, they just don't feel like being around anybody. Or they don't feel like getting themselves together, getting dressed, doing something with their hair. Feels like too much effort. Everything feels too hard. So that can lead to some isolation. Okay, a fourth area to look at is difficulty with finances. There's several categories of this. Difficulty keeping track of bills, paying them on time, mail is piling up, the kitchen table is covered, then there's piles on the counter, then there's pile on the coffee table. So that can be just processing mail can be hard, but certainly bill paying. I have another client that routinely, until we got someone else involved, she would say, my phone's not working. I don't know what's wrong. And then I look at her phone and I can't really tell anything. I try to make a call and I get a recording saying it's Verizon to pay your bill online, so she would just forget to pay her bill, and she didn't have it on auto pay because that kind of technology was not something that she was going to be able to do. So difficulty with bills, mail. Older adults are very susceptible to financial abuse, exploitation, scams, not even maybe remembering that I already gave to that charity once, or I already got that home warranty. I have a client, he was still living independently at home, but he was starting to become pretty forgetful about things like that, and he signed up for 3 different home warranties because he didn't remember that he got another call. So his daughter had to put some things in place on his phone so that certain calls would only come in through people that were recognized phone numbers. And even if you give them one charity, then you get on this list, right? And everybody starts calling you wanting money, and some people lose track of how much they're actually giving. Okay, could also be excessive online ordering. Any Amazon users here? Anybody order on Amazon?
On a first name basis.
You're on a first name. Yeah, a good friend of mine, her mom, even while her mom was in assisted living, she still had her credit card, and she really didn't have what we didn't think at the time, this was years ago, that she had any kind of cognitive impairment, but she was ordering, her thing was the shopping network, home shop, QVC or whatever, and she had like 50 really, really nice purses in her closet. So she was just, and sometimes it's not that you have dementia or cognitive impairment, it's that you're bored, it makes you feel better to buy things. There's other reasons why people shop too much, but it's something to take a look at, what you're spending on online purchases or telemarketers. And sad to say, people are exploited by family and friends who may have access to an account or may convince somebody that they need access to help them, but then they might start taking money out of an account. So it's something to, if you have any questions about that at all, talk to your most trusted family member. Okay, a fifth area, difficulty driving. People here drove themselves, or who drove you, or who drove themselves here? Okay, so pretty much everybody. Okay, so some issues with driving, our reflexes, our reaction times slow down with age. That's just kind of the way it is. There are things you can do to improve that, but without any intervention, the reaction time will, and reflexes will slow. You can also have certain chronic conditions that can inhibit what you need to do when you're driving, like if you have, for example, vision issues or cataracts, if you have, significant hearing loss, you might not hear a horn, a siren. There's a lot of health conditions, arthritis might interfere with how quickly you can switch from the gas to the brake, for example, or how you can turn your wheel to veer out of the way of something, making those split-second decisions. And the number one red flag, though, for driving is suddenly kind of getting lost when you have driven that way, 1,000 times. Getting lost going to a familiar place. And then if you get lost and you don't know how to use a GPS on your phone, that's a huge red flag, okay? Very dangerous. Okay, sixth area, weight loss. Has there either been a significant weight loss or a continued gradual weight loss? So that can be from lots of things. It could be a medical condition for some reason. It could be possibly be a medication issue if a medication makes someone feel nauseous or like they don't have a good appetite. But it can also be that preparing meals has become too challenging. Cooking, using the microwave, chopping, following recipes, making sure you have the ingredients to make certain things. All of that can become kind of difficult. Some people actually have trouble just deciding what to eat, and so they just grab a snacky thing. I had a client who, he didn't live at home, he was in independent living. He was starting to just kind of not know what to do when he was hungry, kind of forgetting like what his options were. Like, I can go to the dining room, I can heat something up in my microwave, I can do this and that. So when he was hungry, he would just go to this coffee machine that they had and make himself coffee. And he was just drinking coffee all day, and he was starting to lose weight. Not that he was never eating, but it wasn't a normal amount for him. Subsisting off of convenient snack foods is really not healthy. I had some peanut butter crackers and I grabbed, I had an apple, but you need protein, especially if you're recovering from anything, if you have any wounds or skin issues, if you have had a surgery, and just from a normal standpoint, we all need to eat a balanced diet. Dehydration is also super common. I had to really work with my mom to drink water. She just wanted either Diet Coke or a cup of tea. Well, coffee and tea, unless they're decaffeinated, are diuretics, so they will actually draw water out of your system. And sugared drinks or diet drinks are not the best way to hydrate. So dehydration can lead to lightheadedness, fatigue, even nausea and decreased appetite can happen. It can also lead to UTIs, urinary tract infections. It can lead to more confusion or memory issues for someone who's already struggling with that, and even, again, risk for falling. So if you're dizzy because you haven't had enough to drink, that can obviously lead to a fall. All right, 7th area, I know this is a lot of areas to think about, but you see how practical these are, right? That they can really interfere with your daily life. Number 7, just difficulty in general keeping up with everyday tasks. Okay, what would those be? Ask these questions. Is my house becoming unkempt? Like, I don't remember last time I actually dusted or cleaned my bathroom and got behind the toilet on the floor. These are difficult physical maneuvers, some of those that we have to do. Again, is mail piling up, or just even the junk mail, the things like, oh, I'm going to read that. I need to read that paper, and next thing you know, you have 20 issues that you're not keeping up with. Is the fridge empty, or does the fridge have a whole bunch of food in there that is spoiled, expired, not wrapped properly, or you're not sure how long it's been in there? Are you missing any important appointments? Oh, and really important, like you only see this doctor, you see this doctor every month, or you haven't seen this doctor in a long time, you finally get the appointment and then you miss it. Or even an important family event. Do you feel like you're more forgetful about what day of the week it is, what year it is, what month? You'd be amazed at how many people are living independently. Everyone thinks they're functioning pretty well, and if you ask them some of these questions, they have to go look at their clock that shows the day and the date. Okay. And then frequently misplacing important items like your glasses, your keys, your purse, your wallet, your hearing aids. Like, we all have done this. Where are my glasses? And they're on our head, right? I'm not talking about that. Or like my cell phone is black. It has a purple case, but sometimes I lay it on our black granite countertop with the black face up. I can't see it easily, and my husband's like, I wish I had $1 for every time you said, have you seen my phone? Is my phone over there? Is my phone on the couch? And then he's like, look in the kitchen, and there it is, So that doesn't mean I have dementia. That means I'm not being strategic about where I always put my phone, or turning it over so it's the purple side. So that's when you have to also ask, is this different for me? Like, oh, I've always done that with my phone. But if suddenly I'm leaving it in bizarre places, like in the refrigerator or something random, and then I can't find it again easily at all. And there's nobody there to help me find it, right? You need someone to call you on that phone so you can hear it ring. So how often is that kind of thing happening where you're really, really having trouble with that? Okay. Number 8, I've only got 2 more categories. Number 8, falls. Have you fallen? How many people here have fallen in the last year? Anybody? 2 people. Okay. How about the last 6 months? Okay. Did you receive any injuries? No. Were you able to get up on your own? Okay. How about you?
It was what I call a major smashing cough.
Ooh.
It was just before COVID, as COVID was starting.
Okay.
And we were up in Canada, couldn't go to the doctor.
Oh, wow, okay, yeah. So that's a key indicator too, that something is going on.
The floor was slippery.
Yes, okay, that's true. So someone who's got really good balance, really good reflexes and muscle strength can perhaps prevent a fall on a slippery floor. But when someone isn't as strong, doesn't have as good a balance, maybe vision is also an issue, reflexes are slower, that's very likely to happen. You know, it's not unusual at all for that to happen. So guess how many people over the age of 65 end up in the ER for a fall annually?
A lot.
A lot. What's a lot? What do you think's a lot?
55%.
3 million
Oh.
adults over age 65 end up in the ER. Those are only the ones that end up in the ER. There are plenty that do get hurt. You know, they might have a skin tear, they might get some bruises, but they're able to, someone helps them up or a caregiver helps them up and they don't really need a 911 call. So the most dangerous thing is if you fall and you don't have a pendant, right, where you can push it. I always recommend getting the Life Alert pendants that have fall detection built in, because one of the people I cared for in my life was an elderly neighbor. He fell, he lived on a farm, and he fell and his pendant swung like this. He dislocated his shoulder when he fell. He couldn't reach his pendant.
Oh, wow.
And the only reason I found him, me and two of my kids went with me to help him clean his house and stuff, and he'd been laying on the floor for hours. So if I hadn't shown up, he didn't have any children, he didn't have a caregiver. So that's the tricky thing. If falling is an issue, balance is an issue, if it's difficult getting from point A to point B. I have a client currently, she needs her walker and she has one, but she navigates a lot of times. I'm holding onto this, okay, now I'm holding onto the dining table, now there's the kitchen counter, but there's spaces in between each one of those things. So it's just good to kind of think through, how is my balance, how is my strength? So home care can actually help with that too, because a caregiver, one of the things that they can do is exercises with you. And you can find out from your doctor, what are some exercises I should be doing for balance and strength so that I can get up from my toilet, get up from my chair, get up from my bed, walk from point A to point B and feel more steady on my feet. You know, get an evaluation. But a caregiver who's there with you a few times a week, those can be your exercise days. I think that's a really great thing about home care. Okay, and the last thing is really like safety concerns, because safety has to be first. So falls, of course, would be a huge safety concern if that's something you feel really unsteady or you've fallen. But some other things, leaving a tea kettle on, leaving something burning, you know, cooking on the stove and forgetting. Improperly using the microwave, for example, setting it for 2 hours instead of 20 minutes or 2 minutes, or putting metal in a microwave can start a fire. There's a lot of issues that can happen with a microwave. Leaving your home and deciding I'm going to go for a walk, and then suddenly again having this feeling like nothing really looks familiar. I'm not sure where I am. That can happen. Medication issues we talked about. Maybe not locking doors and having proper security in your home, and can put you at risk for a burglary or a break-in or an assault. Inability to care for and maintain the home. Is there mold? Are there any pests that are getting in? Inability to maybe recognize a serious health event like a heart attack, a stroke, an infection. You know, oh, I feel like this a lot. I'm sure it's nothing. or just not really recognizing that something like that could be going on. And then foodborne illness, that's a big deal. There are a lot of people, one of my clients currently, I have to routinely go through her refrigerator, and even when I tell her the expiration date is blank, she says, it's fine, I've eaten things past the expiration date, it's not gonna hurt me, you know? So then we have to have this whole conversation, is it worth the risk, da 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 da, and then when she's not looking, it goes in the trash. And she usually doesn't even like talk about it after that. So, but that's a big thing. People leave stuff out on their counter for too long and then put it in the refrigerator, and things have already maybe started to germinate. Okay, so those are some of the really big things. And I just wanted to touch quickly on dementia, or even mild cognitive impairment, which is in itself its own diagnosis and doesn't always lead to Alzheimer's or some other form of dementia. You might just stay in that mild cognitive impairment zone, but even that can affect all these different areas. But dementia isn't just about memory. It affects mostly short-term memory initially, for sure. Long-term memory is more well-preserved even as the disease progresses, but it affects balance, it affects mood, it affects judgment, reasoning, logic. So there's a lot of other things. And most people with any level of cognitive impairment, most of the people I've ever worked with don't think there's anything wrong. A few do here and there, and a few, when you discuss it with them, are able to realize that something's wrong. But a lot of people are really in denial. They can't really understand it. Everything seems normal to them. And also, other people are filling in a lot of the gaps for them, finishing a sentence if they can't seem to find the word, reminding them about lots of things, helping them with their medications. So other people are filling in the gaps when there really probably should be some sort of an assessment to make sure where they're at, okay, and what the needs are. Okay. Does anyone here feel like they're relying more and more on their family and friends for help? Anybody? And it's okay, you don't have to raise your hand, but if you feel like you're needing more and more help from family and friends, or maybe a family or friend has expressed that they're really overwhelmed or feeling really burdened with helping, those are things to kind of look at too. Okay, so what are the options? I mostly want to talk about home care today and differentiate it with home health. But in the handout that what's your name again? Sorry, Michelle. I was going to say Melissa. Michelle. Yeah, in the handout, it's going to be everything that I'm covering right now. But there some stuff I'm not going to go too much into are the differences between independent living, assisted living, memory care, and nursing home care, and hospice. So there will be a little breakdown of each one of those things, but I really want to talk about home care and then what's different between home care and home health care. So May and I were talking about, I don't know why they call it home health and then home care. They're so close, people get them mixed up. It should be like home medical, right? Because that's what home health care is. Usually if you've had an injury or a hospitalization, a surgery, you're recovering from something, usually the provider will arrange for home health for a period of time. And that would include skilled nursing care, such as taking your vital signs, doing wound care dressings, any number of different kind of what's called skilled nursing things. And then it could be physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy. It could even be mental health services. So that's home health, and that's covered by Medicare. Anything you want to add about home health or anything like that?
That's pretty much
what it is. It's usually also only like if you are discharging from the hospital or rehab and getting home health, it's only 2 to 3 times a week.
Yeah.
So it's not something that's gonna be consistent and ongoing because insurance covers it.
Right.
So it's usually based on, on the therapist's assessment, and they will determine how long per the assessment you will qualify for services to reach either your baseline or your max level of function. So
Right.
average 2 to 3 times a week is gonna be your home health services.
And in my experience, I don't know if this is different for you, May, but in my experience, sometimes people don't, a lot of times, people don't do their physical therapy or occupational therapy exercises beyond these little sessions, so they don't make the progress that they need to make in order to continue to qualify for ongoing services. Yes.
One of the limitations of the home health care thing, that at least to the extent that it's covered by Medicare or whatever, is that it does not cover day-to-day living functions.
No.
And that's a real drawback. Now, we are fortunate, like the village in Howard actually has a program called Circle of Care, which will, under certain circumstances, provide that kind of a bridging
Yes.
service. So you can do your grocery shopping, get your medications, things like that.
Right. Yes.
The recording can't hear the people in the audience.
Oh,
Can you
okay.
repeat?
Yes,
Or
yes, that's fine. So
summarize.
the gentleman was saying how home health does not cover sort of your daily tasks, your routines of everyday living, you know, getting to a grocery store, errands, appointments, nothing like that. It's strictly everything that would kind of fall under a medical umbrella, but that the village has something called the Circle of Care, which can pair people with other resources to bridge that gap. Is that
Yeah, and
correct?
that's geared toward people coming out of hospital.
Yes, for people coming out of the hospital. Good point. Okay. They can do, home care can do home health aides who will help with what's called your ADLs, your activities of daily living. That's bathing, dressing, toileting, eating, and what's the other one? Medication, sorry?
Med management.
Med management, yeah. Sorting your pills, making sure you're taking what you need. Okay. Oh, and transfers, helping you get up from the couch and use the bathroom, that sort of thing, getting out of bed. So you can sometimes you can qualify for a home health aid. But it wouldn't be errands or shopping, laundry, nothing like that.
And usually it's only, Medicare will only pay for like maybe 45 minutes, maybe once a week or twice a week, you know, so it's very unusual for them to pay for, you know, ongoing, consistent home health aides, if even available per the home health agency.
Right. So, and you can go on Medicare.gov, you can look up lots of things about home health. Home care, caregivers, that's how we refer to those who provide the care, they're professional caregivers. Many people, even knowing all the different care options that are out there in terms of like communities that you can move to, most people want to stay in their own home and age in place. Bring the resources to me. I don't want to move. This is my comfort place. This is my home. I don't want to lose my independence. That's one of the biggest things that people express, and also affordability. We know that senior care is very expensive. And you don't necessarily get the attention that you think, or a lot of people think they're going to have more care services there on a day-to-day basis than they actually end up receiving. So people want to stay in their own homes, they want to maintain their independence, and they end up turning to family and friends for help. But what if you don't have family and friends to help you? What if they can't help you as much as the help that you actually need? You know, somebody can stop by for a couple hours on the weekend, but all during the week you have a lot of things that are going unmet, needs that are going unmet. You might also have family members, adult children, that are feeling like, I don't know if you're safe at home anymore, or you really need somebody to help you do A, B, or C. Maybe you don't need help with, getting bathed and dressed, but maybe you really need help with shopping, getting to appointments, meals, meal preparation, things like that. So here's where home care can be really invaluable and possibly actually necessary. A really great resource, okay? When you're recovering from a surgery, when you're returning from a hospitalization, when you have fallen, when you need assistance because of loss of balance and strength, getting from point A to point B. If you're facing a new diagnosis or a life-limiting or chronic illness, transportation to appointments, to the grocery store, to the mall, just to walk around and window shop, when you need to go to the library or on outings. Companionship and social interaction. When there's a good caregiver match, a really good fit, that person can become like a really good friend, like a family member. Even as a care manager, I end up doing a lot of caregiver stuff. It's just who I am. Like if that person needs something, I don't go, that's not my job description. I have one client that I trim her hair and color it about every 6 weeks. And we're, there's a bond there. She's not just a client. And I know she doesn't see me also as just her care manager. And that dynamic is really beautiful to see. And it can really meet a lot of intangible kind of needs that the person has. Laundry, other types of light housekeeping. Even though a caregiver cannot, unless they're certified, they cannot sort your pills, but they can assist you. So they can help you put your pills in your pill box, and they can give you reminders when they're there. Again, keeping that refrigerator clean, organized, no expired food. Or if a family member is providing a lot of help, they can give the family member a break, or a family member that's going on a vacation and doesn't want you to be alone the whole time they're gone. So it's really home care ensures your safety, quality of life, and allowing you to maintain your independence as long as possible. I've had clients that, I don't need, the adult kids want them to have a caregiver. They don't feel like they're safe, or there's things there's some warning signs, some red flags. But the client is like, I'm the parent, you're the child, you don't need to tell me what to do, I can take care of myself, I'm independent, I'm a very independent person. The idea of caregiving is not to say to you, you're just not capable and we're going to take all your independence away. It's to help you maintain the level of independence and living in your own home. Those are probably the two, other than safety, those are the two biggest things, really. Allowing me to live the life that I want to live, because I now have the right kind of help, so I can do those things that I want to do. I used to be able to drive to the mall, and now I don't feel really comfortable driving there and walking all around the mall by myself. But maybe someone else would take me and we'd have fun and we could sit and have lunch. I think caregivers are, once you have a caregiver in place, I think a lot of times the caregivers are underutilized. They're able and willing and supposed to be doing a lot more than is being asked of them. So I'm really big on, with my clients, make a list, put it on the refrigerator. This is what needs to be done every time your caregiver comes. And these are the things I really like doing. These are things I want to be able to do without always having to go, would you do this? Would you mind doing that? Because you're paying them, you can ask a lot of them. As long as it's in their job description, and their job description's pretty big. Would you say that that's kind of what you see too, is that underutilization of what they're kind of capable of doing?
Yeah, shouldn't be to stand up here. Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure. And I think sometimes people feel like they need to take care of the caregiver too.
Right.
It's almost like innate, you know, but they're there to help you. You don't have to worry about, are they fed, you know, do they need to drink, do they need a comfy place to sleep? Like if you're getting overnight care, they don't sleep. They are responsible to be up and supporting you. So utilize them, right? Because that's what they're there for. So
Right.
100% agree. They're definitely underutilized.
Yeah.
So
I had a client and the caregiver was not with Capital City Nurses, it was a different company, but the client said, well, she's mostly just sitting next to me all day and watching TV with me and looking at her phone. And that's never acceptable. For caregiver agencies do not want to hear that about their caregivers. It does tend to be a fairly common problem, but it's not something that's true for every agency or every caregiver. So hold them accountable. Like I said, a list, a checklist is just a really good thing to have of what needs to be done. And if a caregiver is sitting there and, you know, say, hey, I really want to do something different. I don't want to sit here. Don't wait for them to necessarily offer, hey, why don't we do this? Even though I think that's what they should be doing, and all the best caregivers are doing that. But in some ways, they do receive a good training, some agencies more than others, but they also need to be continually held accountable, just like any of us are on our job, right? So if I'm going to a client's house and I'm supposed to be going over their appointments and their calendar, but they're watching a show I'm interested in, and I sit down for the first half hour, I'm watching TV, that's not acceptable, right? So, but that's when that real companionship, I think when they know what is expected and they're held accountable to that, and when there's a lot of back and forth about what I like, what I don't like, okay? So, one of the biggest things with home care that is a hurdle is that it is not covered by Medicare or a secondary insurance. Some long-term care policies will have coverage for home care like that, but usually you have to meet very specific criteria. The policies that I'm familiar with all say you need help with at least 2 of your ADLs. And when that means like help bathing, help getting dressed, help eating, not preparing the meal, that doesn't count. It's actually eating, you need assistance, help getting to and from, and medication management is not one of the criteria that you can need. So it has to be at least 2 of those other things, all the policies I'm familiar with. I'm sure there might be others out there. So, but in general, and then I think there's, you can run out of that benefit. So if you have caregiving for a very long time, even with long-term care insurance, you will reach a limit of what the benefit is. But no other insurance covers it. So it's something that you have to budget for and look at what your financial situation is. Home care, most agencies require a 4-hour minimum per day. 4 hours goes like that. When there are things to do and places to go and tasks to be done, that 4 hours can easily be filled up. There are some agencies that have started doing, doesn't have to be 4 hours, it can be 1 or 2 hours. However, the hourly rate basically makes up for not having the 4-hour minimum. So the rates vary roughly between 30 and 37 an hour for a caregiver. The caregiver themselves obviously doesn't get all of that. Some goes to the company. But if you're doing 2 hours, you might be paying $60 an hour or $55 an hour. So they're going to get it, one way or the other, so to speak. So actually, the more hours you get, your rate typically can be adjusted a little bit lower. Correct? Yeah.
Yeah, so like for a 24/7, let's just say, you know, you have a surgery, you live alone, and you need 24/7 care. After that, just for one night or one day after a surgery, your rate, at least with our agency, your rate can really lower, you know, $29, $30 an hour. Now, if you need 4 hours per day, then we have to pay the caregivers more to go out for less time. So that's where you're gonna see more of that, you know, for us at least, that $35, $36 per hour. Now, we're not a franchise, so we can be very flexible with rates. We're lucky that we're allowed to do that, but some agencies vary, and it's always good to do your research, of course. But typically, like Jeannie mentioned, it is usually around the 30s that you're seeing that rate for that.
Yes.
I'll just stay up here.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. Okay, so the assessing and planning ahead, right? So it's kudos to all of you for looking into this because you either think you might need it now or you might need it in the future, because that's all advanced care planning. I'm planning for what I think I might need or want ahead of time, because the worst situation is to be in a crisis and not know what the heck to do, who to call. That is far too common, that nobody's even thought about the kind of care they're gonna want. And then something happens and now you don't know where to start, you don't know what's available, you don't know what the costs are, you don't know what your budget is. It's like this big overwhelming thing. So assessing and planning ahead, the key is to be proactive, right? It helps to avoid that stress of having to make decisions in a crisis and maybe settle for something that you're not super happy with, but because it's the only thing you can do at the last minute. Advanced care planning, we help families, our agency helps families a lot with that, because we want people to make decisions about their care while they still have a voice. You know, God forbid something happens where you can't express what you want, and you can be very specific about what you want and need when you create an advanced care plan. So be proactive like you are coming here today, and then take it some steps further about kind of thinking about, do I want to stay in my home forever? Do I have the money to do that? What would the finances look like? And it's probably easier to get a caregiver through home care, 3 or 4 times a week for 4 hours rather than 1 day a week for 4 hours. The reason being, all the caregivers for these agencies, they're wanting regular, 40-hour weeks. They need the hours. This is their full-time job for most. And so it's easier to find the really good caregivers when you have more consistent schedule and a little bit more hours. And then your rate goes down a little bit, but it's not impossible. If you just need somebody 4 hours once a week, that's not impossible. They're certainly able to work that out. One thing I like to tell my clients if they're considering home care is, since I know my client and I can also have conversations with them, I make a very detailed list of what we're looking for. We want, do you want someone who's more quiet and, lets you kind of take all the lead? Do you want someone who's really bubbly and talkative? Do you want someone who loves to go outside? I have a client right now who, she's Indian, and in her culture, when she was in India, everybody walked a lot outside, but now she doesn't feel safe walking alone outside. And so I have a caregiver for her who loves being outside and talks about a million things when she's a very big talker, and that's a good fit for that client. So, really the more you can tell the agency about what you need and what you want, the more you can find a good fit the first time. But keep in mind a couple things. With any new caregiver, unless something really you just know right away, like something happens or something just doesn't feel like a great fit right away, you can certainly let the agency know, like, I can already tell this isn't going to work. But most of the time you need to give it a little bit of time. Get to know each other. You know, you don't know what they're like. They don't know all your idiosyncrasies either. So get to know each other for a couple weeks. See if it feels like a better fit then. But if not, we call the agency, you know, I don't think this is a good fit. And here's why. Because then if they get another caregiver, they want to make sure that they're not getting somebody similar, right? So that's a good thing to keep in mind when you're looking. Let's see. So how to get started if you get to a point where you feel like, okay, I need to evaluate a whole bunch of things, or whether I want a caregiver, or whether I want to move. Talk to your primary care provider or any specialist or whatever about kind of what can I expect with what I'm dealing with physically, cognitively, whatever. What can I expect this kind of progression to look like? What do you think I need? Is there something that you think I need? Talk to your family. Review the handout when you get it in email. Forward it to... Does everybody here use email, by the way? Okay. Do you use email? Because if you don't...
Yeah, little too much.
Oh, okay. Okay. So go over it, review the handout or the email handout with, you know, family members or a close friend. And we always need input from other people, because we can just be sort of blind sometimes to our own issues, right? So we want to hear from other people, like, how do you think I'm doing? Have you noticed anything? And it's not a criticism. If somebody says, honestly, I do. I noticed this or that. Don't be offended. Don't be hurt. This is coming from a place of concern and love, right? So be thankful that you have someone willing to talk to you about it, be honest with you about it, right? Okay. You could talk to a home care specialist like May. She's really
My
good.
cards are here, and you can always, even if it's just a question, you can just call my cell.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to help with anything.
Yeah.
And even give you recommendations for anything else you need as well.
Right. You could talk to me or another care manager, because what we help people do is really hone in on what are the needs, what are the goals, and in the bigger picture, not just the caregiving world, but what are the needs, what are the goals, and how to navigate the costs and see what might be affordable and how to plan ahead so your money doesn't run out, okay? So there's 2 resources right here. Also, some questions. Ask the home care agency about the qualifications of their caregivers, what kind of training they receive, how experienced. You can even say, like, I don't want a brand new caregiver. I want somebody who's been doing this a long time, another great question is, does this caregiver, has they had clients that they've had for a long time? Kind of like when you go to work for a company and you find out that, boy, there's employees there with a lot of longevity. There's a lot of employee retention there. That's kind of what you want to ask about your caregiver. I've also had people who don't mind a new caregiver because they can kind of teach them how to be a good caregiver and show them what they need to do.
I also find the younger, less experienced
Yes.
ones are super motivated.
Yes, they're more enthusiastic, they're more creative,
They want to learn a lot.
they want to learn. That's so true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so
So
true.
if you're
Younger
open
ones.
to younger,
Yeah.
we have plenty of them.
Yeah. Very conscientious. And I feel like sometimes more passion driven. Like they get into this not because, well, I don't know what else to do, so I'll become a caregiver. They really are passionate about seniors, and it's an area that they really want to grow in and maybe later do some other career with it. So, so that's great. I'm glad you said that. Yeah, so those are kind of the things to think about for your own situation, how to think about planning ahead, and how home care can fit into that.
And just like a side note, if there is a crisis, you know, God forbid you fall, break a hip, and you're like, I need care right away, that's something doable as well.
Right.
You know, we can start, at least for our agency, we can start literally same day or within 24 hours. So, you know, there are two options. There's that planning and, you know, really working to find the right fit. And then there's that crisis mode where you're like, send someone in right now. And that's fine too. So two options to start care, and it's easy both ways. It's not like a long, heavy process where you have to sign contracts and a million papers. We try to make it as easy for you to start care. So I think the hardest part is probably finding that right fit for you. You know, sometimes you find them right away. It's the, you know, I have a client that started the other day and just absolutely loves her first caregiver we send in, and that caregiver is going to work with her 5 days a week, ongoing until you know what. But then sometimes it's like a friend. You're like, nope, not working, May, send me something else. So sometimes that's the hardest part about it, but starting is very easy.
Great.
Good.
Important because they have the training and education and the licensure to work with you. So, you know, asking, you know, what certifications and what training the caregivers have. You know, for us, the orientation process is pretty thorough. They go through extensive training. Most of them have dementia training as well. So you definitely want to ask, do you offer CNAs? Do you offer med techs? You know, what kind of licensures do your caregivers have? Really good question.
Good.
Do they need
Well, not our our expertise is more so our caregiver CNA care, but yes, our CNAs, RNs, and LPNs must have continued training. I think it's like every 6 months or something like that.
Yeah. To
And
maintain their certification, they have to have a certain number of hours of continuing education.
And we have one person that literally works for the company that makes sure their license is active. Because if it's not, they simply cannot work for
What
us.
is the CN, what is that?
CNA, Certified Nursing Assistant.
And that is the qualification for something?
Yeah, I believe it's an associate degree and
Yes, that's
training
the
for that.
minimum.
Yeah, yeah. And you can take your CNA licensure and then become an RN/LPN eventually from there too.
And if someone is a CNA and a med tech, they can do your medication
Yes.
management tasks as well.
Yeah.
Think of dementia is a pie, okay? Here's the dementia pie. About 65 to 70% of that pie is caused by Alzheimer's disease. But all the other pieces of the pie are other dementias. Dementia with Lewy bodies, Parkinson's related dementia, frontotemporal dementia, vascular dementia, Huntington's disease. Those are all smaller slices of pie. So Alzheimer's accounts for the majority of all dementias. Dementia is really a collection of symptoms and with different causes of that. A caregiver, a spouse, it becomes very overwhelming, and your life starts to get very, very limited because you don't feel like you can leave them, or they don't want you to leave them because they feel insecure when you're not there. So it becomes this, glued to the hip kind of a situation, and it's not sustainable long term. I do a lot of caregiver support groups, and everybody who comes has a loved one with dementia that they're caring for, and they end up neglecting themselves so much. I did one recently at Winter Growth. Yeah, so
So
I've
these
done
are-
a lot of them.
So these are, people would have to be in those programs?
No, they're open to the public.
Oh, I should tell her about that.
Tell her about the one at Brightview, Columbia.
Uh-huh.
That's right off of 29 and
Right.
like Shaker Drive or whatever. Because that's,
Martin Road.
yeah, Martin Road. That's every month, a different topic.
And we can help, just even if it's once a month, if she wants to go have a day.
Right.
You know, and feel peace of mind knowing that her husband is taken care of and safe. We can do once a month literally for 4 hours.
Mhm.
And that's fine. It doesn't have to be consistent.
That's great.
Yeah.
So that's the respite care.
Yes.
Your caregiver's been with you, what are their certifications, how often are they trained? Do you do any other additional training outside of just the bare minimum of what's required for certification? Are there other trainings that you do?
Licensure. You want to make sure
Licensure, yeah.
the agency is licensed. There are a lot of small mom and pop agencies. I mean, not to say anything bad, but I find that it's important, you know, if something happens with your caregiver and that agency is not licensed, it's all on you, right? So you want to make sure that the agency is liable and taking care of the caregivers, right? And their caregivers are working for the agency versus for you, and you don't even know about it. So making sure first and foremost that the agency is licensed. That's very important.
How hard it is to actually get the benefit payout.
Yeah.
And they don't understand that there are criteria. It's not just like, oh, now I need a caregiver, or now I need to move into assisted living, so they're gonna pay for everything. It does not work that way. There are people in assisted living who still don't qualify for their long-term care insurance because they don't need help with 2 of their ADLs. They only maybe need help with 1. So it's tricky.
Yeah.
Definitely call, if you do have long-term care, call. It's unfortunate and it's hard, but you know, it's like calling the DMV,
I
right?
know, it's awful.
They will tell you exactly what you qualify for. If you have an elimination period, right?
Right.
You have to go through 90 days first of private pay
Right.
before you get the long-term care to coverage. But it's so simple for us. We work with all long-term care agencies. It's very simple for us to get started with long-term care once you have that information. So essentially you call them, you say, hey, I'm opening an account working with Capital City Nurses. They give you an account number, and then we take it from there. We send long-term care the care notes, and then they will send you a check in the mail every week. So simple process, you just have to get all of the information from the long-term care first,
Right.
so that you know what your
Criteria are, yeah. Resources out there.
And we
Office
do
on
contract-
Aging.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Office on Aging, you can even just call, like I find the website sometimes to be kind of confusing, but you can call them and say, hey, what resources do I have? Here's my situation. What resources do you offer? There are also senior centers that have some programs for people with Alzheimer's where they're like a day program where you can take them for the day. There's adult daycare, which Winter Growth in Columbia is really good. I love Winter
Is that
Growth.
the Connections?
No, that's a 55 plus senior center, has the Connections group for people with Alzheimer's. There's something called Alzheimer's Cafe where is it monthly?
Once a month.
Once a month, yeah, you can take your loved one and everybody there has a family member with dementia, and it's a way to connect with other people who are caring for someone with Alzheimer's. And then for the people with Alzheimer's, it's a comfortable setting. There's usually a meal and like a speaker. I've done a couple cafes in the past. And yeah, so Winter Growth does transportation. They have a group, one side of the building is like higher functioning individuals who, some of them just want something to do for the day, and they have like some programs and activities. It's really nice. music and discussion groups and all kinds of stuff. And then the other side of the building is people with a lot of different types of cognitive impairment, including dementia, but also there have been autistic individuals, Down syndrome adults. But it's a beautiful group. There's just a lot of love there. I just love Winter Grove.
Great.